Today I want to talk about this guy, the Royal Whiptail Catfish. Normally he's a bit tricky to spot in the aquarium and a bit harder to film, but we're lucky because at the moment he's sitting on a clutch of eggs. Royal Whiptail Catfish are really easy to keep. Well, if you're a moderately experienced fish keeper, you're not going to have any problem being able to keep them in an aquarium. Their scientific name is Sturisomatichthys aureus. I think I've got that right. And I'm pretty sure that's the right species, although some of the ones that you see in Australia look like there might be some Sturisomatichthys panames in there, but they're quite rare, so I'm not sure that's the case. But one thing's for sure, we don't have the festivus, which is the other species, and they're the ones that have very long tendrils on the end of their pectoral fins, whereas the species we have in Australia only have the extension on the caudal fins, on the tail. They're not fussy as far as water chemistry goes. They like it to be around about 20 to 26 degrees temperature-wise. They don't mind it to being in that colder range. Mine have certainly been in that colder range. As far as water chemistry goes, they like it to be around 7.5 to 6.5, so around about neutral. But the water that comes out of the tap here is a lot more alkaline than that. It's at around about 8. But because of the amount of driftwood that I've got in this tank, the pH rapidly comes down after a water change, and they don't seem to mind that at all. They don't like a lot of dissolved solids in there, so relatively soft water, but to medium hardness is not too bad either. Give them lots of water changes because they do like fresh, clean water. Straight out of the tap is what I use, just adding chlorine neutralizer, of course, and that seems to work fine with them. Royal Whiptail Catfish are not fussy eaters. First and foremost, they'll graze all of the surfaces of your tank to graze on biofilm and a lot of different species of algae, so they're great in planted tanks. Now you can also give them things like zucchini, like you would a bristlenose catfish, weigh it down with a stone and they'll core that out rather quickly. But mostly I find they just love the commercially available algae wafer pellet, which you can get various varieties of, and I don't seem to see there's that much of a difference, and they just love it. Even better than that, I find that the fry will eat that very, very quickly. But one of the things that they really, really love is to have some current in the tank. Lots of flow of water. You can tell by their shape and the fact that they're a sucker-mouth catfish, they do like to be in the flow of a fairly fast-flowing body of water. Now I've got loads of filtration on this tank, and you'll see that I've got a DIY filter up there, which is flowing at about 2,000 litres an hour or something like that. It means that this tank here gets turned over in volume about 5 times in an hour. So loads and loads of turnover of water. I've also got a wave maker, just a cheap one off the internet, that's blowing current up the other end as well. So there's lots and lots of current flowing there. And current, I think, is probably one of the secrets in getting them to spawn, because where they've spawned here is right underneath the outflow of the filter here. So there's lots of current flowing over the surface where they chose to spawn. It seems to be usually vertical, and in this case they've picked the front glass. Sexing them is really simple once they become adults. If you have a look here, the female's the one on the left, and you can see she's much more round, and she's at this moment just about to spawn, so she's engorged with eggs, but in general they're much rounder fish. The male is more slender, he's the fellow on the right, but more importantly, when you look closely at the mouth area of the male, you'll see he's got these bristle-like comb structures which are similar to the structures on bristlenose catfish, so really easy to sex. But the really interesting thing with these royal whiptails, and pretty much all lorikeet catfish, of which that's the family they're in, the male is the one that sits on the eggs and the female just kind of clears off. He sits there for 7 to 8 days, which is how long it takes for the eggs to hatch out. And that seems a long time to me, but possibly it's not when you consider that when they hatch out, they're free swimming. So they have no yolk sac, so they can swim around, and they will pretty well start to take food almost as soon as they've hatched out. Maybe 1 or 2 days they'll orientate themselves first before they really will take food. And again, current is the most important thing when you're raising fry. Have a look at what I've done with my tanks down here. This is one of my fry tanks. As you can see, they like lots and lots of air. And more importantly, they like lots and lots of current. So there's a power filter at the back of that that's blowing current towards the front. It also makes it easy because all of the rubbish that collects in this tank is right at the front. So it's very easy for me to clean it out. Now the male does a fantastic job of guarding the eggs, even in a crazy busy community tank like this. I've got ravenous angels, I've got some Steindachneri, humphead cichlids in there, quite an array of hungry mouths. But he does a fantastic job of looking after the eggs. The only trouble is that once the babies hatch out, they won't survive. If you've got them in a species-only tank, leave the eggs with the parents. They'll be absolutely fine and they'll do really, really well. But in a tank like this, I found that I had no other option. So I was put onto a good technique, and that was to leave the eggs obviously with the dad until they were about 7 days old. So they were just about to hatch. And then I simply take any old common or garden credit card and I carefully scrape them off into a net, and then they go straight into a fry rearing tank. And that has proved to be very, very successful. I've got loads and loads of fry. And these guys keep spawning once every 2 weeks. So they're amazing. Well, there you have it, Royal Whiptail Catfish. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I hope to do a lot more of them in the future to highlight lots of other interesting aquarium species and give you a few tips on the best way to keep them. So if you like this video, do press the like button and subscribe, and I hope to see you soon.